Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Mushroom Lab. I have a new culture I'm really excited about and I'm playing with here. I have 3 colonized blocks, and this is Panellus serotinus. Hope I said that right. Also known as the Late Fall Oyster. And these blocks are getting close to pinning, I think. I think this yellow color is an indication that they're getting close to pin. What I did is I got the culture from Jacob at TheMushroomShopLLC on Etsy, and he sent me an agar wedge, and I expanded that out on some more petri dishes on agar, and then I took it to grain spawn and then to pasteurized hardwood fuel pellets using my standard pasteurized hardwood fuel pellet process. And I have these beautifully colonized blocks. I'd say they took about 3 weeks to colonize, and I did cold shock them in the fridge for 48 hours, pulled them out, and a few days later we are here now. So this should be a cool experiment. I've also never eaten this particular species, and they are edible, so hopefully we get some nice fruits and we can try them and see what we think. You need to tape the tops of your bags back. You always want to get them as tight as you can, trying to eliminate all that airspace at the top of the bag to discourage pinning there. So hopefully, if they want to cooperate, which they don't always do, they will fruit right out the slits that we're going to cut. This one's just kind of blowing up everywhere, so just going to do a big X-shaped slit. Trying not to mess up those pins any more than I have to. It's inevitable that you're gonna score it a little bit, but just try and minimize the damage. There we go. You can see that metabolite still dripping off there. Could just be something that this species does. I don't know, it's my first time growing it, but it could also be that we're at the top of its temperature range and it's just not 100% happy with the current situation. Alright guys, this is going to be the culmination of our late fall oyster Panellus serotinus experiment, at least for the summer. So when I started these blocks, I knew it was going to be way too warm for these to fruit. It's probably around 70 degrees in my basement now, which is way too warm for these guys. These fruit in the late fall and they do like it cool, but I decided to go for it anyway. I was excited to try out the culture, and I did definitely learn some things. So what I ended up doing with these 2 blocks right here is I just put them in a clear plastic storage tote, and it does have holes drilled around it. This is actually a storage tote that I used to use for fruiting oyster mushrooms on straw, so the oysters would fruit right out those holes. But I figured it would allow a little air exchange and allow me to put these in the refrigerator and give them some cooler temperatures just to see what would happen. So these 2 blocks sat in this tub just like this in the refrigerator at 42 degrees. And these are my standard pasteurized fuel pellet blocks. No extra supplementation or anything, just a pound of grain spawn into 5 pounds or so of pasteurized hardwood fuel pellets. And you can see we actually got some really nice yields on this top block. It's got a big old cluster on it. It's definitely ready to pick. The one underneath was probably suffering from some CO2 buildup. You can see I got some longer stems down there, so not as nice fruiting, but this top one did better. Probably had a little better air exchange. The CO2 probably pooled at the bottom of the container and caused that bottom block to stem out a little more. I did have the lid on this as well, but these really did not get any light at all, other than when I opened the refrigerator and lifted the lid just to mist in here. I was, every day or two I was misting in here to keep this moist. But other than that, these did not get any light. And you can see, especially on this top block, they still develop pretty nicely. So that's kind of interesting. It seems like these probably don't need a ton of light, maybe like some of the other oyster mushrooms, to develop normally, but they do definitely like the cooler temperatures, because this block here Couple things with this block. So this block I just left on my basement floor downstairs. So this was at about, I'd say 68 degrees. And it was a little drier down there. So we got some different coloration on the caps. That could be a combination of the temperature and the dryness. They got kind of a burnt orange color to them. Definitely a lot smaller, and probably from the temperature stress, I'm guessing. You know, these were fruiting at 68 degrees. This strain does not want to fruit at 68 degrees. These were exposed to light as well at 12 on, 12 off, and you can see we got some very persistent top pinning on the top of this block, which I think was caused from the light being overhead and them really trying to pin under the plastic. That could also be that these mushrooms were experiencing drier conditions, so the block was trying to find a moisture area to fruit, and it was pinning really aggressively on top. So that was probably a combination of this main fruiting mass experiencing drier conditions and the lights being overhead. So what did I learn? They probably don't need a ton of light. So what I'm going to do is, when temps cool off this fall and winter, I'm just going to set up a real simple fruiting chamber, probably in my garage where the temps are really cold, and we'll just try and fruit them out there. We'll give them a little bit of light, some cold temperatures, some humidity, and I think they'll do really nicely. But this does seem to be a strain that is just really grower friendly, because I grew these in actually a very poor environment, being sealed up like this. You can see the caps were right against the lid. These top caps were right against the lid of the plastic tote, which caused that weird cap deformation that you see sometimes on oysters, where it almost looks like they're getting gills on top of the cap. Some people think that's rose comb, but commonly I see it in oysters when they have way too much moisture on top of the cap. So I think that's a little bit of a deformation just from all that excess moisture from those caps being just pushed against the lid of that tote in a constant super humid environment. But all in all, these are some really beautiful mushrooms, and they seem pretty grower friendly. So if you guys are growing for a farm market, something like that, this might be a really nice addition to your lineup. Again, this is Panellus serotinus, just on my standard pasteurized hardwood fuel pellets, no supplementation at all. And the block that was sitting in probably the most optimum conditions, even though they were actually pretty poor conditions, got a really nice flush on it. So we're going to take this back up in the winter, guys, when we have some better temperatures, more conducive conditions to growing these. I have some plates that I'm going to expand out in the basement, and I'm probably going to just go agar to grain again, and then grain to pasteurized fuel pellets. Maybe we'll try a little supplementation, maybe some 5% wheat bran as well. But that's going to be it, guys. Hit me up in comments. Let me know what you think, and I will catch you next video.